We're also very, what would it be, like knowledge of a situation, very in the know, I guess, of what the hell's going on in Michigan right now.
Yeah.
Yesterday was one of the most wild rides on the internet that I've had in sometimes around the sports world. You know, go home from the Thunderdome after a great day here in another U-Ball championship run of D-Bud and D-Bo, and obviously congrats to Bone and Butts, the D-Block. They continue to be the champion. Go home, hang out with daughter, get a chance to put her up to bed. Every time you check your phone, though, there's a new thing happening with Sherrone Moore. So many troll accounts, so many AI, different stories, everything's going crazy. All we do know is Sherrone Moore is not the head coach of Michigan anymore. Sherrone Moore is currently detained in a jail, I believe, in Michigan, not because of the reason why he got fired, but because of what happened immediately after he got fired or acknowledged the fire. We'll have Pete Thamel joining us in about 3 minutes to break down what's real, what's not real, because if you're on the internet last night, boy, there was a lot of things. And with how good AI is, I'll tell you.
Oh, man.
I was seeing a lot of different stuff. Pete Thamel will break down what we know, what we don't know, very serious stuff, very serious allegations, very serious storyline that obviously will lead into what the future of Michigan is and who's their next head coach and how they go forward. Biff Pogge, who's a businessman, billionaire, extraordinaire, will be the interim head coach for the Michigan Wolverines. He was this earlier in the year when Sherrone was suspended for a couple games. They play Texas, on New Year's Eve in the Cheez-It Bowl. Texas playing their entire team.
Sure.
Texas not happy about not making it in college football playoff, gearing up for next year to kind of do their thing. They're only 6.5-point favorites against a Michigan team whose starting quarterback has already taken Michigan all the way out of his entire social media status. And Michigan, for the next 2 weeks, is poachable for any coachable to go and get them. So it's a wild time to be alive. Maybe that Texas-Michigan game, 6.5, might get taken off the board, depending upon who is all on that. That's not for us to care about, though. Just something to think about as we put this out into the world. Texas currently only 6.5-point favorites against Michigan. Who knows what this Michigan Wolverines team looks like by the time New Year's Eve comes around? Just something to think about. The Talks Table's here at Boston Connor, at Ty Schmidt. One half of the hammer, Dahn. Cowboys AP Tone is here. And Con, man, I'll talk to you about this. The internet was alive last night.
Oh, yeah.
And in our position, okay, we have learned. We have stubbed our toe a few times. Okay, we're live. We are live 3-4 hours a day. Boom, boom, boom. So what we say one day might not necessarily be the exact truth like a week from them because we're living in the moment with the information that we have. Last night, a lot of information, a lot of misinformation, a lot of stories because we're talking about the biggest rivalry in college football.
Oh, yeah.
We're talking about college football fans, and we're talking about AI being able to create anything. This story seemingly came out of nowhere. Okay, I heard a lot of people on the internet, now a lot of things, but a lot of people were saying, like, kind of had rumblings of this. We kind of heard this was going on. It's like, I did. I mean, I was just up there a few weeks ago. We talked to Sherrone on College Game Day. I talked to Coach Sherrone Moore the day before to get a little info on his team. It's like, I didn't know any of this was happening, so I was kind of blindsided by it all, and then boom, he's in jail. It's like, what a whirlwind of a day for everybody. Family involved, obviously, other lives involved, very serious allegation. It's like last night was an insane night on the internet, and I think it showcased, I don't think it's a good, but college ball.
Yes.
Like Ohio State people, obviously. Burner accounts that have information that nobody else has somehow.
And Michigan State people.
Michigan State people getting it. I mean, last night was insane, and all we know is that Michigan's future is just one big question mark, I guess, at the head coach. And what yesterday was, I think, is kind of one big question mark for all of us as well.
Yeah, yesterday's one of those when you're on the internet, you read everything, you react to nothing because you really just don't know what is going to be real, what is not going to be real. You don't want to get in a situation where you react to something that is just completely wrong or from one of those teams, one of those fans, rather, of a team that is rivals with Michigan. But I think because of what the last 3 weeks of college football has been, that also amplifies it. Like, it hasn't been as much college football playoff as much as it's been coaching going other places. Lane Kiffin, Sumrall, all these other spots that have been open.
Jail.
As well. But like Michigan, if you were to tell us, or if you were going to tell everybody 2 weeks ago, Michigan was going to be a job that was open, you would probably say Michigan is up there with the LSU. Like, LSU was kind of the open spot, and then after that, the tier was everything else. Michigan goes into that top tier.
Okay, joining us now is a man who has all the information on what's real, what's not real. We appreciate him. And he's had to report some stuff that Michigan fans didn't like in the past, but he'll report against any school that has anything going wrong. That is why he is the authority, ladies and gentlemen, from College Game Day, both football and basketball, the authority for ESPN. Pete Thamel.
Yeah,
Pete, we appreciate you joining us. Obviously, you and Wetzel, big part of the storylines yesterday.
Yeah.
Okay, you sent us over a timeline of what you knew, or what you know. Could you potentially walk us through where we stand right now? Because the internet was ablaze last night with so many different things. It could be real, could not be real. What do we know, and where do we stand right now? Pete, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Pat. This is what we know from a timeline perspective yesterday. Sometime midday, Sherrone Moore was dismissed from the University of Michigan with cause. One of the things that stood out to me about that, Pat, is they were very clear that this was because of an inappropriate relationship, and rarely in these cases is that as explicitly stated as Michigan said it. So they clearly relayed that information to Sherrone. Not long after that, police in Pittsfield, Michigan, Pittsfield Township, responded to investigate what they called in a press release an alleged assault. Not long after that, Michigan had a team meeting where the team was told of Sherrone Moore's dismissal. This was obviously shocking to the team and staff. They did not know this was coming. Michigan announced things. I think it was 4:43 p.m. was the official time of Michigan announcing this. And then around 7:15 last night, the city of Saline, Michigan, announced that Moore had been detained, and they were working in partnership with Pittsfield Township. And then it emerged through court documents last night that Sherrone Moore had been booked in Washtenaw County Jail. He's still in custody in Washtenaw County Jail. Dan Wetzel, my colleague, just got a statement from Washtenaw County Prosecutor's Office, which basically said no announcement of a decision on charges is expected today. So we will wait to see the fate of Sherrone Moore. He remains in custody. We will wait to see if he is charged and then what he could potentially be charged with. And then, obviously legally things would proceed from there.
Okay, so thank you for the timeline. Thank you for the information. We saw a lot of stuff on the internet yesterday. There was a potential threat, a suicide threat, and then they say alleged assault. Do we have any more information on the situation that arose from him getting put into protective custody or into jail? Because that was I don't want to say misworded, but it was like kind of a little bit of a guise on what was actually happening. Is he arrested? Is he taken in for his own protection? Like, how do we know any of the information on that particular fact?
Pat, until the police come out with a clarifying statement or a police report, I don't think anyone can be certain the exact nature of what he could be charged with. Obviously, the police specifically said they responded to an alleged assault. So that's the baseline fact set that we are going to work off of. This projects to be very complex, and certainly, the notions you referenced on the internet have been bounced around. But I think, to be responsible here, the police documents that will inevitably emerge through public documents in this case as the days unfold here are going to be the guide to what is actually happening.
Okay, what are the next couple of steps here, both for Sherrone Moore and for the University of Michigan? Because obviously they have a bowl game. Biff was put into the interim head coaching role. They are currently 6.5-point dogs against Texas in the Cheez-It Bowl, which is certainly one of the biggest, most popular bowl games this particular season. Michigan and Texas and the Cheez-It Bowl would be a big deal. What are the next steps for Michigan? What are the next steps for Sherrone? Get out of jail, obviously, first, but everything else along those lines.
Sure. Sherrone's expected to retain an attorney. We'll find out if he gets arraigned. If he waives that pretrial hearing, I'd expect him out in the near future. That's just how these cases typically go. We'll see if his case is different than that. But usually, when someone is brought in on this type of allegation, there's a process that unfolds in a relatively quick time frame. The assumption from talking to lawyers in that area about how these things work is that he'd be released on some type of bond in the near future. As for Michigan, Pat, obviously, you and Connor just referenced this volatile coaching carousel. Michigan enters it at an inopportune time, and this is obviously shifting from very serious Sherrone Moore situation to football. And this will loom as a giant football story over the next couple of weeks. Michigan is one of the best jobs in college football. It obviously, in this era, has myriad resources that it can leverage. We saw that with the Bryce Underwood signing last year, and it comes at a time where we have seen, about a dozen power jobs open. So obviously big coaches have moved. You've also seen another half dozen really high profile coaches get extensions or get close to being extended. So in theory, the pool for Michigan is smaller than it would have been if the job had opened in a traditional hiring and firing timeline. Now, I've been told this morning that that is not going to quell Michigan's ambitions, right? Michigan obviously institutionally feels like it can go get a great coach. So the conversation about this is going to start with Kalen DeBoer of Alabama. Whether he wants to go, whether Michigan can get him, whether the timing could work would remain to be seen. I would be skeptical, just having been around this long enough, that Kalen DeBoer could navigate the high wire to leave in the middle of the playoff. And also, no one has indicated that he'd be interested at all either. So I would expect some clarity on that fairly soon, just because, from the second this job opened, his name was the first one to emerge. From there, I think you'd have to look at a trio of sitting head coaches who are all excellent. Jeff Brom at Louisville, Eli Drinkwitz at Missouri, and obviously Jed Fish, who's at Washington, who had been at Michigan in less controversial times under Harbaugh before things, the last 4 or 5 years, there was this spate of scandals that we've seen. Fish was not involved in any of those. He brings an extensive NFL background. When you look at the DNA of Michigan football, obviously, what happened when Rich Rodriguez went there. They tend to want to be NFL style, right? That experiment did not work with your former head coach there when they went more spread and tempo. Michigan that reinforced the DNA of that program being sort of defiantly pro-style, NFL style. So I would think, I saw Jesse Minter up on that list. He's certainly, a guy who has been there, who had a lot of success as a coordinator, whose name will be mentioned. So, Pat, Michigan officials are in shock right now. It's hard to overstate just the human nature to this there. So I don't expect a decision, in 48 hours or anything like that. Just in terms of having to gather yourself, there's going to be a lot of board input on something like this. How much say does Ward Manuel have in this hire is, going forward is going to be a question I think that looms over this search. So there's, it's going to be from a pure football standpoint, perhaps the most compelling search of this whole cycle.
Okay, so thank you for all the information. There's so many different follow-ups that the boys will certainly hit in different, whether it's Ward Manuel or the players or the Michigan officials and everything like that, how long everybody has kind of thought that maybe this was taking place and information, because it feels like a lot of people are talking like as if they knew something was coming. But there's a 2-week period in this modern world that we're in right now where players are allowed to get poached, right, if you change your coach. And obviously you mentioned Bryce Underwood and you talk about the resources. He's eliminated all Michigan stuff from his profile. There's other, obviously, commits that had gone to Michigan because of Sherrone Moore. There's other players on the team that say, well, if we can potentially see what other options are, we're definitely going to do that. That feels like the world that we're in right now. Does that 2-week period start today? Is that kind of how that whole thing goes? And what are we looking at for Michigan when it comes to like what their roster is going to look like by the time we get to the bowl game on New Year's Eve?
So, Pat, there's been a rule change, and this is my understanding of it, and these rules have changed a lot. But I'm fairly certain now, if your coach leaves, you are allowed to enter the portal. I believe the number is 5 days after a new coach is hired. Now, obviously, the portal itself is going to organically open on January 2nd. So you're correct, it was, coach leaves, gets whatever it is, you could just go free, right? And that shifted this summer. That's my understanding off the top of my head here to how this unfolds. So it used to be coach leaves, it's free agency season, and as we're in this new era and things are changing, my recollection of the rule is that.
Okay. All right, sweet. Thank you for the information. Now let's talk about the information and who had it when. Go ahead, Tone.
Yeah, Pete, you talked about athletic director Ward Manuel, and obviously, there's a lot of people upset with him on the internet and a lot of people upset with Michigan in general on the internet on the timeline of potentially when this investigation started and when they knew, because just a week ago was early signing day, so a lot of people were upset that they just let their signing day go on with, no information of this to the recruits and people that sign with them. Do we have any idea when this investigation started in relation to that, or just in general, when Michigan knew potentially?
So Tone, this is my understanding of the timeline, and Dan Wetzel reported this morning. There was an initial investigation into this, and nothing credible was found. It came from an anonymous tip. So that information, once it was brought forward and nothing was found, was then closed. And then within recent days, very, very recently, I believe Ward Manuel was in Las Vegas at the Football Foundation event, as most athletic directors are this week. So that just shows, and they hired Kerry Combs as a special teams coach 3 days ago. So this wasn't an organization acting as if they knew something was imminent. They fired the special teams coach last week, brought in a veteran guy in Kerry Combs. Business was operating as usual. Dan was told that within the past day or two, credible information emerged that was overwhelming in nature that changed the investigation and led to the decision yesterday.
So over the last couple of days is really when the people that are in positions of power at Michigan found out about the credibility of these allegations that had come from an anonymous tip maybe months before.
I would certainly say weeks, Pat. I would certainly say it was it was weeks.
But then they did an investigation. They're saying what you're saying is they did an investigation into the anonymous tip and found there was nothing that would be deemed.
Yes, the initial investigation did not find what this latest one did.
Okay,
and what the difference there was, we are not certain of yet. But it went from not enough to move forward to a definitive decision with a very public declaration of what led them to their decision. Obviously, Sherrone Moore would have been owed $12.5 million if he had been fired for just simply losing games. Instead, he was fired for cause, so the school doesn't plan to pay him anything.
It's fascinating because, the world we live in is obviously one that has a very active internet. Mm-hmm. And then there's a lot of tweets coming that saw this coming from trolls and burners. And it's like, well, if these burners knew it, who's running these burners? Who's talking to the burners? And then it's easy to kind of just say, well, if these people do, then everybody must know. What you're saying is there was a knowledge of a situation, an investigation took place. It was cleared from their investigation. And then within the last 48 hours, more stuff coming. It's like, whoa, this is very much something that needs to kind of get settled. I guess that is I guess if you're Michigan, that would be the best possible outcome, is that we did our investigation and we didn't find anything. We didn't just let this continue to happen under our watch, which was certainly what was being talked about. Once again, we're in the middle of the fire right now. We will only learn more as it continues to go. As it continues to go will be the coaching conversation. You alluded to it a little bit before. Connor has a follow-up.
Yeah, Pete, looking at the coaching situation, Michigan is one of the top jobs in the country. It's hard to argue that in general. But do you expect any of the coaches who are now moving, whether it be Summerall or any of those other guys going up maybe a step to maybe get poached? Do you expect any of the names that were allegedly floating around Penn State to maybe then float to Michigan? Yeah, Matt Campbell, but him being more so one of the names that might get poached. And then, guys like Marcus Freeman, guys like, Braum, I believe was the guy. Lane, would he even be possible? Dan Lanning, would he be one that could get poached to Michigan? And then any of the NFL guys, are there any guys that you could see maybe? John Harbaugh has been talked about getting fired from the Ravens for the past 4 or 5 weeks. Would he be a guy that maybe says, my time in Baltimore has kind of come to the end. Maybe I go to Michigan now. Is everything on the table? Do they have Mike Tomlin? Is there a specific thing that they're looking for? What would you expect their cycle to look like over
and
these
is it like the
weeks?
Penn State one where everybody is going to get an opportunity? Is that how you kind of view this end up going?
Yeah, so I'll answer the first part of the question. I don't think anyone that just moved would be a viable candidate. That's just very, very hard to do. A coach that just got extended could end up being a viable candidate. I didn't mention Clark Lee last time. Clark Lee, from a fit perspective, from how Michigan views itself, would be a wonderful fit at Michigan. He's obviously been at Notre Dame, has deep ties to the upper Midwest. That would make that type of move where someone who has signed an extension could still maybe then go is more viable than a guy like Summerall or Campbell. Now, if this job opened 3 weeks ago, I would think Matt Campbell would have been the top candidate. He'd been at Toledo, which is right down the road from Ann Arbor. He is of the Midwest. That had always been sort of one of the jobs that people had pegged him for. It just had never opened, in a timeline where he could have gotten it. But he is not going to walk out of Penn State to go there. That's just not not reality, or based in, just based in anything. As for NFL stuff, that's not my world as much as it is Adams and some other people. But what it surprised me, the one fortunate part of the timing here is if you're trying to hire a NFL coach, Pat, in like mid-November, that's hard, right? You can't even see the end of the season. Now that we're sitting here in mid-December, and the franchises that are struggling, it would be more. It'd be less off-putting to leave if you're out of the playoff and you can kind of exit, a little more gracefully. Just that, when does the NFL regular season end? It's like the second week in January, correct?
Yeah, coming up soon.
Right around that. So it's always been, as the calendars have changed, it's just always been hard to sync up an NFL like sitting type head coach to college sitting type head coach. Maybe that's one, dollop of serendipity in the timing here is that could be a little bit more tenable than it might have been in November.
You might have hit maybe 10 to 12 of them today. Tenable is just your most recent one, but you've really been serendipitous.
Dollop of serendipity.
Yeah, there is. You're really on it today. This is a big Pete Thamel day. Obviously, we appreciate you joining us as the information continues to roll in. Go ahead, Ty.
Pete, you mentioned Kalen DeBoer kind of being the guy who they're potentially going to go after. This is all hypothetical, obviously, but if Alabama were to lose in the first round next week, and then he turns around and let's say he does go to Michigan, and they have that 5 days where guys can enter the portal, like is there a chance that could Michigan pull out of the Cheez-It Bowl? Like, is that in play at all? If there is a mass exodus of players, and like, is there a chance that we don't get that Michigan-Texas game, or at this point, is that off the table?
Excellent question. Not one I've put a ton of thought to, Ty, to be honest with you. If you look at Iowa State and K-State not playing in their bowls, there's a $500,000 fine. This game's obviously going to be a ratings monster, so the Big Ten is going to be incentivized to want to participate in it. Now, if the roster isn't available to play, that would certainly be a different conversation. I think it's so early. We're not even 24 hours from this happening. It's difficult to project. But New Year's Eve is you talk about serendipitous timing, right? Like that's fascinating with the portal opening essentially 48 hours later. Look, with these big brand programs, your high-end NFL guys aren't going to play in the bowl anyway, right? That's just the way of the world from Christian McCaffrey now. It went from an anomaly to just the expectation. So I think, Ty, it's just too early for me to have any kind of feel on that. But I have not heard anything that indicates the roster is shaken to a point where they wouldn't play in the bowl.
We appreciate you, Pete. We'll continue to follow you on X. You and Wetzel have done a great job through this all. Thank you for keeping us what's real and what isn't. We very much appreciate that. And if we see any good memes or things, we'll send them to you to look into.
Yep.
Love the memes. Thank you, Pat.
You're the man. Hey, they're calling you Buckeye Pete again.
Look out.
Buckeye Pete again. You're the man, lazy. Yeah.
Oh, geez.
Oh, geez.
Oh, geez. Of course they are.
Listen, I'm just trying to do my job. It's not my fault. They're always in the middle of it. They're always in the middle of
They are,
quagmire.
really.
They're right in the middle of it. This came out. See, that's why I was so confused, because I feel like we are, somewhat plugged in the college world now, because I get a chance to meet these people and travel. And there was a lot of people on the internet that were like, this was known. It's
It's
like,
a different section of the internet.
I didn't know any of this. Legit, talking to Sherrone, I was like happy for him. Now you lose to Ohio State, you don't make the playoffs. They just paid $16 million to a quarterback for you. Like the natural college football fan objective is if he beats Ohio State, is all this,
Yeah, if they get into the playoff.
It's crazy to even think that.
Maybe
Right.
just another 3-game suspension instead of.
That's what I'm saying. Like it is, sports are an insane thing. They are a great unifier, but they're also, potentially something that can expose things. And this is just a sad situation. Sherrone's always been nice to us.
Yeah.
But all this stuff that we learned about quickly and turn around, it's like chaos was happening, I guess, behind the scenes over there. How do you even win a game? I don't know.
Well, and like you said, that's why it was so hard to track last night, because some of the tweets that you were seeing were backdated like 2 weeks ago, and there were like shreds of truth in those, and then surrounded by a bunch of other bullshit. So it's like, well, this part might be correct. All of this, who knows? So it was like, it really was just, trying to keep your head above water, because I mean, it's such a crazy situation that you can kind of talk yourself into believing certain parts of all the kind of more sensational stuff that's out there.
Well, especially with the AI being able to make mugshots
Right.
and
Yeah,
police
exactly.
reports. It is outrageous on the internet.